My name is Antinea Radomska. I've always lived in Rome, but I always found an excuse in my Polish roots to go back every once in a while, and maybe meet my newborn cousins, or enjoy an excursion to the Masurian lakes, or eat grandma's pierogi. In the past years, she has never missed a chance to remind me of not being married or not having children. You know, I'm 23, and I'm a filmmaker. I've always felt the urge to travel, maybe due to a score to settle with my origins. The sweet sound of my mother's lullaby turned into a violent shout of hatred across the streets where I used to get malinki with my family. So, I picked up my camera, I rented a car, and took a deep breath. I've traveled more than 4,000 kilometers, all around Poland. It was worth to give it a shot, to go and see by myself, and maybe through my eyes, show to anyone interested the thousand faces of this Baba, a little bit mother, and a little bit whore. I'm sure that the best taste comes by strong contrasts, and surely there's no lack of them in Poland.
I think the question of civil society in Poland is a very complicated one, because apart from being a democracy, Poland is in a very cruel phase of capitalism now. So they are so vulnerable for arguments like this is European Union, or this is the West, or this is what they say, Germany colonizing Poland. They're vulnerable to such arguments, and they're very good public for parties like Law and Justice.
PiS jest w Polsce jedyną partią, która chce reprezentować mieszkańców takich miast, w jakim mieszkam, oraz mieszkańców wsi. A wtedy już, pamiętam, to już 92 albo 93 rok, Jarosław Kaczyński już wtedy mówił, że to jest rabunek na naszym kraju przeprowadzany.
The story is so hard to tell when you try to use some kind of big Western narration to it. Everything doesn't fit.
In this journey, lost among the countless country lanes, I was seemingly more and more destabilized. I couldn't find any certainties. The clear picture I've been drawing in my lonely apartment in Rome was losing its consistence, disrupting in millions pieces of a sophisticated puzzle. I understood that I had to get rid of the Western filter I was looking at things with, in order to grasp the real meaning of it, and to wonder if maybe the contemporary Polish situation could be a sign of the fact that in Eastern Europe, the establishment of Western democracy and capitalism was not accompanied with the same speed of liberal and democratic values in civil society. Maybe Polish society has not been able to comprehend this fast process, and it's rejecting it.
Jeżeli to będzie dalej szło w tym kierunku, no to demokracja będzie ograniczona i zagrożona. Za parę lat możemy mieć taką dyktaturę.
In my eyes, it has never been a politically stable country. I knew that Poland, since the accession to the European Union, has become even more polarized. The already privileged became more privileged, and the already dispossessed became even more dispossessed. So I knew that at some point these differences will become exacerbated. It's for me, in a way, logical, but still no one expected that it would take such a turn of such a totalitarian, let's say, politics by the government. But I don't think that people are changing. I think that just people that have not been visible in the last government, in the recent government, have become more vocal and more visible.
Di fondo la classe intellettuale o non c'è più, oppure ha dei problemi di identità.
Beh, anche per motivi storici. Ci sono, però sono pochi che si battono, che combattono per la Polonia libera i demokratyka.
Mamy pełną demokrację, tu nikt nikomu nie zagraża i każdy szanuje wynik wyborów. I to jest moim zdaniem najważniejsze, żeby ludzie wybierali, kto ma rządzić, a nie wiem, elity albo komuś się coś podoba lub nie podoba.
It all started in 2015, when Poland took a big turn to the right-wing politics. The nationalist and populist wave brought PIS, Prawo i Sprawiedliwość, to the government. The party is led by Jarosław Kaczyński. It is a right conservative formation, clerical, Eurosceptical and anti-Russian that leans towards authoritarianism. According to recent surveys, PIS has 43% of preferences, 3 times as much as other groups, all standing between 5 and 19%. It has always counted on the Polish countryside, but in recent times it has also won many young people and citizens disappointed by the opposition.
Prawo i Sprawiedliwość wygrało wybory także dlatego, że obiecało ludziom dużo pomocy socjalnej, finansowej. Czyli obiecało dodatki na dzieci i obiecało prawo i obiecało sprawiedliwość.
Plus jest to doskonały program, który pozwala ludziom wydźwignąć się z biedy. Po tym jak otrzymali 500+, zaczęli się ładnie ubierać, poszli do pracy, a dzieci stać na wczasy, na których nigdy w życiu nie byli. Także rodzice naprawdę inwestują te pieniądze w dzieci i chwała Bogu.
It was like getting back some dignity to lower classes. Yeah, it was like we recognize you, we see you as citizens, we don't want you to change, and there are many things they are do poorly from a tactic point of view, and there are many things they don't do good at all from every point of view. We try to emphasize that it's good they're actually doing something.
The party in power is trying to make themselves the most visible actors in the country and introduce themselves in the most important structures in the country, fill the structures of the country, fill the institutions with their loyalists.
Bardzo skupiło się na utrzymaniu władzy przez kolejne kadencje, to znaczy na rozmontowaniu systemu prawa, trójpodziału władzy. Nie mamy już w Polsce niezależnego Trybunału Konstytucyjnego. To była pierwsza rzecz, na którą podniósł rękę rząd PiS.
Allora si può più parlare di borderline.
È già stato superato, dici?
Sì, c'è un limite che è stato superato già da un pezzo, altrimenti l'Europa non avrebbe nemmeno considerato di poter spiccare un mandato sulla Polonia. Invece questo è stato fatto per la prima volta nella storia dell'Unione Europea.
PIS also engaged in a campaign to take control of the Polish judiciary in open defiance of the law, the constitution and the courts. In January, members of the European Parliament approved a resolution which supports the European Commission decision to trigger Article 7 against Poland for passing the constitutional reforms, a three-step process that could lead to Poland being stripped of its voting rights.
To jest paranoja systemu prawnego, który obowiązuje w Polsce. Jest coś niezgodnego z prawem, ale nikt nie jest odpowiedzialny. Niemcy mają pozycję twardą, Francuzi, Holendrzy, Hiszpanie, Portugalczycy, a dlaczego my nie mamy mieć pozycji twardej? Trzeba walczyć o swoje prawa. PiS jest partią prounijną, tylko zależy kto jaką Unię widzi. Rzucanie piorunami, że wy nie jesteście demokratyczni, bo chcecie wybierać podobnie jak Niemcy sędziów. Ale Niemcom wolno, a nam nie wolno. Nie udało się Węgrom, no to bierzemy się za Polaków.
The parliamentary victory of the Conservative Law and Justice Party in 2015 has brought substantial change to national media landscape. The ruling party, led by Jarosław Kaczyński, went ahead through the parliament with amendments to the media bill, taking full control over the state broadcasters and promising a shift from public to national media. The current government battle for a new national narrative has fueled political and journalistic debate in Poland and beyond. The ambition to reshape the media system alongside broader change in the judiciary and the way civil society functions have brought Poland widespread international criticism.
Law and Justice has always wanted to, let's say, repolonize the media, which means that they wanted to gradually limit the foreign influence on the media market.
To jest kwestia bardzo silnej propagandy rządowej, która wielu Polakom przypomina tą propagandę, która była w czasach przed upadkiem komunizmu w Polsce, czyli wychwalająca dokonania rządu i partii rządzącej i bezwzględnie atakująca opozycję, bądź nawet nie informująca o tym, że są jakiekolwiek społeczne protesty.
The moment it happened, the independent, let's say, non-state funded media have become polarized in the other direction. And the media landscape has become really black and white. The pro-government and the anti-government.
E lo sappiamo che il giornalismo ha perso tantissime voci negli ultimi anni.
Cioè, si sono licenziati da soli perché sono stati sottoposti alle condizioni che Un giornalista non può avere.
E chi è rimasto si è preso un grande esaurimento nervoso.
To maintain the narrative of the party and to remove anything that would oppose any move of the government in the eyes of the people who vote for them.
I don't know why people don't react to that, you know?
I think people do. Many people treat this situation with the media takeover by the government as a temporary situation.
And you think it is?
And this is what I think it is.
We all know that almost 90% of Polish citizens are Catholic, but the answer I try to give myself is how and why this can influence in such a profound way the political structure and society's fundament. Could this be the cause of a rise of nationalism, hate towards other religions, the anti-refugee campaigns, and the diffuse anti-LGBT beliefs?
Czy jest tak religijnie, to bym nie powiedziała, może w tych starszych strasznie rocznikach, ale tak to jednak raczej nie.
Not about God, they are speaking sometimes about what you have writing on your t-shirt, and they told you that it's bad.
Polish Catholics, they are much more stronger, and they follow all the rules, and they follow all the celebrations, festivities.
Ma ogni giorno c'è una processione comunque, scusa.
Ma guarda, da quando sono in Polonia non ho mai sentito, io ho 17 anni a Roma, non ho sentito la chiesa così addosso come qua, anche per il primo anno già. Cristo, qualsiasi festa che neanche, perché ok, lo sai, Natale, Pasqua, la sai le feste, no?
Certo.
Però qui ogni giorno una festa cattolica, ogni giorno prete in TV, prete nella radio, è una violenza.
The real fundament is taking seriously the fact that Poland is a Catholic country in a very broad sense, but we don't want to reject it. We don't want to look at it like some kind of burden or some kind of problem on the way to modernize. Yeah?
W Polsce jest bardzo silny Kościół katolicki i że mamy w tej chwili do czynienia z sojuszem władzy i ołtarza. Czyli rząd Prawa i Sprawiedliwości jest w bardzo bliskich relacjach z Kościołem katolickim, że Kościół katolicki ma wpływ na tworzone w Polsce prawo i przepisy i że Kościół katolicki dostaje olbrzymie pieniądze od polskiego rządu na swoją różnoraką działalność, bo niekoniecznie na działalność charytatywną, ale na wzmacnianie swojej potęgi, na pewno ma wpływ na to, co się dzieje w kraju. W związku z tym ta cała tematyka, która dotyczy równości, dyskryminacji, praw kobiet, mówi się o niej w taki sposób, jak chce mówić Kościół.
Se tu fai una legge pro omosessuale, rischi che ti si rovesci contro un sistema.
Czyli rząd jest programowo antyfeministyczny, programowo wrogi kwestiom genderowym, programowo wrogi homoseksualistom, programowo wrogi osobom innych wyznań.
Il fatto che sia lo Stato in primis che fa una discriminazione, è ovvio che questo poi abbia un riflesso di conseguenza sulla mentalità delle persone, perché è un modello.
It began in 1955, when the interruption of pregnancy for health reasons was allowed in the Soviet Union. In Polish People's Republic, abortion was allowed, out of fear. The provisions passed in 1956 allowing the removal of pregnancy for medical reasons, when the pregnancy was the result of a crime, including incest or rape, and also due to the difficult economic situation. Basically, abortion was performed at the request of the patient anyways. Today is extremely polarized. Some say it's a murder, some say it's a women's right. There is no space for debate. The law had been toughened up in 1993. In that year, the government passed the Act on Family Planning, Protection of the Human Fetus, and Condition of Acceptability of Abortion were adopted. The Act contains 3 cases in which the pregnancy can be removed. When pregnancy is a threat to the woman's life and health, when is it the result of an offense, or when prenatal tests allow to certify that the fetus is severely damaged.
Non ci immaginavamo che i politici possono arrivare nel 2017-18 a pensare certe cose, a fare certe cose, cioè nel modo così moderno, così cambiato, che può governare la Chiesa, che la Chiesa può avere una voce molto forte anche per le persone che non sono credenti, che la Chiesa può decidere mettere le mani nelle mutande delle donne, sono cose assurde. Cioè, oggi non devono succedere, non possono, e invece però...
E da quel momento...
È
buio, un po' buio.
Però sono scese milioni di persone in piazza, è ovvio questo.
Thousands of people have joined protests all across the nation against the latest attempt by the conservative government to restrict access to abortion, the Czarny protest. The latest proposed legislation allowed full ban of abortion.
Czarny protest? I never be.
No.
I never be. I interested about this, I understand women. It's good they are going out and make this, but I never be.
Ja nie byłam na czarnym proteście, bo ogólnie jestem też zaleniwa na to, ale nie chodzę na takie protesty, wolę siedzieć w domu, jakby patrzeć na to, bo jestem z tego założenia, że Polska niestety mamy taki kraj, że oni to mają gdzieś.
You are on the women's side.
One powinny same decydować. It's her decide.
Yes, it's her decision.
Yes.
We all speak in different languages, and I really mean it. Like, we really cannot understand each other anymore. And as a philosopher of law, I consider it a tragedy. When you talk with people from Ogdo-Juris, they will say it's obvious because we cannot agree for killing, yeah, and the fetus dies, so it's a killing. End of period, yeah, nothing to talk about.
I know the people who initiated the amendment to the law, which is aiming at banning the abortion. And I know that they're just simply cynical people who are just using the moment to start existing, to become visible, and to come to power.
We prepared the legal project of citizens initiative that was called Stop Aborcji, and we were trying to introduce full ban of abortion in Poland. Unfortunately, this law did not pass.
Dzisiaj na ten temat nie ma żadnego obowiązku klubowego, czy jak to nazwać. No, to jest wolność człowieka, to jest wolność wyboru. Pan Bóg nam dał dobrowolę i zabijanie za dużo czasu nam jakby, no nie wiem, niektórzy uważają, że to jest embrion, ja tak osobiście nie uważam.
It's so important to Polish people.
Well, family is a unique, social structure that when the family is strong, society is strong, and society is strong, wealthy, and happy, and that's why protecting the family and the first step is protecting life in this family. It's so much important because we know, for example, that all the liberal ideologies. Ideology that are running or ruling the main Western culture or starting to rule the Western culture are directed to attack family, so to attack something that makes society strong, and we are against it. We are for family rights and for strong families because that constitutes human happiness.
When we talk about family, for example, we talk about the classical family.
Yes, this is the part of destroying family. Our constitution says very clearly what marriage is and states that marriage is a relationship between man and a woman. So this is what our law says and constitution. So it won't be changed that.
Okay.
Constitution is the highest legal norm that then every other norms that comes should be should follow. And this is the battlefield that we have. So we will be on this battlefield. We'll see.
It's an ideological war.
This language kills any communication. I think we need to start to talk for real, and I would love to find some kind of solution, find a real discussion. Even if we cannot find a real solution, maybe we will see each other as human beings who want some, who act the way they act because of the values they think important.
Yeah, but I think the right way is in the middle of it, not to make abortion 100% legal and not to make it just no, yeah? It's something in the middle, I think.
Because life it's not white or black. I think you cannot reach your desired results through banning something.
Ok, è facile fare una legge e vietare, ma non è questo che farà meno aborti. Meno aborti può fare solo educazione sessuale.
Dzisiaj w otwartym świecie, kiedy można się przemieścić w przeciągu godziny czy dwóch, kilkaset kilometrów dalej samolotem, jeżeli ktoś będzie chciał usunąć swoje dziecko, to i tak to zrobi. Tu mamy 100 kilometrów, stąd jest Białoruś, 700 kilometrów w drugą stronę są Niemcy. Wolno wszystko robić.
As every totalitarian laws, governments that are being so restrictive as to interfere with women's bodies, it's just going to boost the black market of abortion. Everybody knows that because, well, if you want to have an abortion in Poland, no problem. I mean, you're just going to pay a lot of money and to the private bodies, let's say, unofficial institutions. So it will continue to exist. The people with less knowledge, less money will have less access to this black market. So actually, this law will deepen the poverty and the dispossession of certain groups even more, right? Because it will just block make it difficult for women who have no money, who have no education, who have no access to have abortion. So they have lots of kids. They will not be able to work. They will stay home.
There is an intention to subordinate women.
Yes, but it will not be urban, professional, educated women. It will be the uneducated, already, disenfranchised and poorer women, mainly from the countryside, I think. Because I come from the countryside and I know how it works there. And I know how it works with abortion in the cities, right?
On October the 4th, police raided the offices of Women's Rights Center and BABA, two NGOs that support domestic violence victims and promote women's rights.
Policja weszła do nas, do organizacji kobiecych, które kiedyś korzystały ze środków rządowych i było to zamanifestowanie siły państwa i siły policji, ponieważ wszystkie te dane, które nam zabrano, wszystkie te dokumenty w posiadaniu Ministerstwa Sprawiedliwości były. Ale ministerstwo szukało jakiegokolwiek pretekstu, żeby wykluczać organizacje kobiece.
You are prepared for this because you know it can happen.
Yeah, we must be prepared for such a situation. Yeah.
You knew about what happened in Warsaw with the Women's Center.
Yeah, of course. Everybody was shocked about that. Yeah.
Demokracja to jest odpowiedzialność przed tym, którzy nas wybrali. przed społeczeństwem. Jeżeli przed nim nie odpowiadamy, tylko odpowiadamy przed samym sobą, to wtedy nie ma demokracji. A poza tym przykład Włoch doskonały, jeżeli wygrała partia, która nie odpowiada Komisji Europejskiej, to od razu zostaliście populistami, oszołomami, jeszcze nie wiadomo kim innym. Witamy w klubie razem z Polską i z Węgrami.
Ja myślę, że to jest taki ogólny trend europejski, to znaczy, że bardzo wiele rządów tak radykalizuje się i że wraca taki nacjonalizm, że to nie jest tylko Polska, jakby my mamy taką mentalność też bardzo, nie jesteśmy takim bardzo otwartym narodem, ale to jest też w innych krajach w Europie, prawda?
I think there will be always oligarchs who are much more stronger, who will affect people's opinion. I know it could be from business to media.
Wystarczy ludzi trochę postraszyć, tak? Jakimiś zagrożeniami, jakąś wojną, uchodźcami, terroryzmem i już jest ten strach powoduje, że ludzie zaczynają się rozglądać nie za demokracją, tylko za kimś, kto zapowie rządy silnej ręki i da ludziom poczucie bezpieczeństwa.
Się boją.
Tak, ludzie się boją. To jest zarządzanie strachem i w Polsce było dokładnie tak samo.
I think the very cathartic situation which is now in Poland is the result of this. The change coming by surprise, and the change being digested through the years and producing what it has produced, the polarization of society.
Do populizmu jest w całej Europie i ludzie muszą poczuć się dobrze w świecie demokratycznym i niepopulistycznym. To nie jest łatwe.
Nie jest demokratyczny.
Populizm nie jest demokratyczny. Chciałabym powiedzieć, że liczymy na zmianę, na to, że w Polsce skończą się rządy populistyczne, że w sytuacji kolejnych ataków na organizacje pozarządowe społeczeństwo będzie nas broniło jeszcze bardziej niż do tej pory, że coraz więcej Polaków będzie wychodziło w protestach na ulicę. Ale się boję. Boję się tego, co może nastąpić. Czy baba przetrwa? Ale taki scenariusz w tyle głowy trzeba mieć. Mam nadzieję, że my przetrwamy i zrobimy wszystko, żeby przetrwać, ale to także będzie zależało od wyniku przyszłych wyborów.
I was lucky enough to have the chance of traveling, getting to know people, cultures, and traditions very different from mine. Growing up, I realized that going back home can have many more nuances than I imagined. I found myself at home in places thousands of miles away from my homeland. To me, the word different, it's in fact an excuse to avoid finding common grounds. Freedom of thought and speech have always been a starting point for me. I found out that what appeared to me as a basic human right was obtained sacrificing our very flesh and blood, sweating, demonstrating, and eventually overcoming skepticism, arrogance, and prevarication. This is maybe the biggest risk we are exposed to. We can't just stop and cheer for what we have achieved. We can let the demon of time strip away the memory of pain and endeavor, turning our achievement into the breeze at the bottom of global financial speculation. We are indeed at risk. Not only in Polish countryside, on Belarusian border or in the mountains near Czech Republic. Propaganda and populism are working on our deepest fears. They force us to take part from one another, to strive for a feeling of belonging that can only be engraved on paper and not on flesh.